Steve, what's going on, man?
Oh, Joe, I'm so happy to be with you tonight.
I'm glad that you're here, bro.
Oh, absolutely, man. I want to wish you a happy belated birthday again.
Hey, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. We're gonna jump into some things in a little bit.
Okay.
Everybody out there that's watching us, we got a very, very, very special guest on tonight. It's gonna be wonderful. You hear that music in the background, we're gonna do some politics as usual. That's what we're gonna do tonight, man. Tashawn, what's up, man? I see you down there, bro. It's good things. I want to give a shout out to my sister. Today's her birthday. Yesterday was mine. Give a shout out to Sean Bay Hamilton. Good bruh. Happy birthday to him. So. I hope everybody's having a good week. I've had a good one so far. Birthday was yesterday. And yes, my sister's birthday is today. And yes, we did have to have birthday parties together. I really hated that growing up. But she have her little friends there and I'd be there and it would be crazy. But tonight we have somebody very special with us. One of my frat brothers. Um, he's running for a Senate seat. Stephen J. Valentine. I'm gonna let him introduce himself, give you guys some background on himself, where he's from, originally, what he's done up until this point, and we'll go from there. Steve, you can take it away, man.
Hey, thank you, Joe. And just as one slight correction, I'm actually running for the fourth U.S. House.
House, okay. Excuse me.
Yes, district seat. Yes,
Excuse me.
yes. And so, Joe, I grew up in a small hamlet called Pottstown, Pennsylvania. But as you can imagine, sometimes it's not where you're from, but where you're at. And so I've
Exactly.
resided right here in Durham, North Carolina since 2005. And so I've left the district several times for work and military service over the last number of years. But I've maintained a residence here in Durham since then. And so
Okay.
I guess you're imagining how is it that I came to actually reside here in Durham. And
Yes, sir.
so I'd like to say that I came to Durham to attend law school and then I stayed. But the truth is that my wife used to travel to Durham to shop at the old South Point.
Oh,
Yeah.
so that's how you wound up here, huh?
Yes. And so she used to travel from Fort Bragg to Durham, and she sort of liked it here. And so she loved the area so much that we decided to move here. And I did, in fact, attend law school here. And we've raised our three children here who have attended Durham Public Schools. And so we have really loved it here in Durham. So we've been here for about 17 years.
Well, that's great, man. That's great. Um, Now you moved here to Durham. You settled in. What were you doing before you got deep rooted into the politics?
And so I actually am a military officer. And so I was in the military for 21 years. And so most of my professional life was spent in the military.
All right. Um, Tell us about your well, first I want to say thank you for your service
Yes.
and protecting our country, and that's always a big thing for me. I was in ROTC when I was at Central, but I didn't decide to go that route. My dad used to be in the military as well. He went to college at Federal State, and then he left while in college and went into the Army for a few years, and then came back and finished his college career. So I do respect the military, and that dude was hard on me growing up, boy. Shoes got to be lined up in your closet, all this kind of stuff. So, and that has stuck with me throughout my life. I think he kind of made me a little OCD. Exactly, because there was certain things
Yes.
you couldn't do. So, talk to us about your time in the military, where you've been stationed, what you did in the military, because I think that's very important. I think when we start talking about politics and things like that, people who have had those type experiences not only know the common man, then they know some of the structure of the government from the military side, And I think that brings forth a wealth of knowledge and an understanding of what people need and what people feel. So talk to us about that.
Well, I guess my experience, Joe, is kind of like yours. And so I was actually in ROTC at Morehouse College
Okay.
and didn't finish. And I did graduate school at the University of Pennsylvania, where I enrolled in ROTC again. And I didn't finish the program. But after I finished graduate school at the University of Pennsylvania, I did get my commission.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
I
great.
did. I ended up getting my commission. I went out to the Army Medical Department Center and School in San Antonio, Texas, where I did the officer basic course and I did the officer advanced course as well. And so I've been stationed several places around the country. Every base in Texas, I've spent some time at. And so I spent some time in West Texas and at El Paso, Texas, at Fort Bliss. I
Okay.
spent a little time, as I just mentioned, in San Antonio at the AMED Center and School. And I also spent some time at Fort Hood in Killeen, Texas. And so, in addition to that, I served 2 combat tours during my time in the military. One in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, where I was awarded the Bronze Star Medal. And I also later served in support of Operation Enduring Freedom in the Middle East. And so I loved my time in uniform, but as most things go, there's always an ending, right?
Yes.
And so I decided to leave the military. I had an accident related to a parachute jump, and my leg never recovered to a suitable degree. And so I decided that 21 years was enough. And so that particularly part of my life sort of ended. But I am always advocating for veterans.
Man, my dad was still living. He loved to hear that because he was a paratrooper.
Oh, airborne.
42nd Airborne. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
that's airborne.
Yeah,
Yes.
real good friend of mine that is so tight with me. I actually call him cousins because our parents went to college together and we kind of grew up around each other.
Yes.
Even though he was in Fayetteville and I was in Laurinburg, which was about 30 minutes away,
Yeah.
he was airborne as well. So he retired from the military about 5 years, about 4 or 5 years ago. So, but now he's taking some civilian duty. So he's over in Afghanistan doing some other stuff. So now
Well,
you get
Joe,
out.
let me just mention. So you had mentioned that your father was in the military. My father was in the military as well. He served in the Marine Corps, and
Okay.
my brother served 24 years in the Navy. And our family actually was a yellow ribbon family long before that term was even used.
Used. Okay.
My dad's brother, who had served in the Navy and got out, could not find a job and ended up being part of the United States Army and ending up on the front lines in Korea. And so he was captured in Korea and he ended up dying as a prisoner of war in a prison camp. And so we have a rich tradition in the military in our family.
Okay. Now get out of the military, and we know now that you're running for this seat. Tell us what you did right after the military, as far as a career and what you do now.
So right after the military, I actually joined the faculty at North Carolina Central University. So first I was in the social work department for a number of years, and now I am the director of the Veterans Law Clinic at North Carolina Central School of Law, where I went to law school.
Okay. Well, Janai has popped up on the screen. That's our lovely co-host.
How
She's the
you
only
doing?
female.
I'm sorry. I was late.
She's a little late, but hey, duty called, and she had to take care of a few things.
Understood.
Yeah,
You know, we're educators, so our job is really never shut off. Never really shut off.
ever.
Janai, you have anything you want to ask before I proceed?
No, go ahead. Let me kind of
Get
feel
yourself in there.
everything out. Right,
All
right.
right. I don't see that glass of wine. What happened to it?
I didn't have time. I just finished tutoring, so I didn't want to go right into the alcohol. The baby.
All right, got you. All right, so well, sometimes that can stress you out, and you have to go right into it.
Right,
All
right.
right, what message would you have for voters at this time?
Well, I think particularly Black people need to know, and particularly Black men, I should say more specifically, that our vote matters. I know that there's a lot of frustration within our community, and it's easy to fault our system because our system does have many faults. But our vote can literally be the difference between saving our democracy or not. Also, I want to tell the voters not to let any person or any organization dictate their vote. And so they need to do their own independent research on the candidates in this race. For example, when you go to the polls, and on many occasions, you're offered a ballot that includes a slate. And so when you fill out a ballot based on a slate, you're actually supporting the status quo and also money interest, frankly, because that's what it's about. And so the last message I want to tell voters is that I want everyone to vote in my race, which is important. But as the Supreme Court continues to dismantle the voting rights and abortion rights, most recently, states more and more are becoming the arbiters of the issues. And so we need to be laser focused on voting for state judges at every level, local prosecutors, and especially these school board races. They really make a difference. Like Joe, there's a young lady named Gail Adams and a young lady named Carolyn Thompson. They're unopposed in the primary, but they're both running for the North Carolina Court of Appeals. And so we need to be laser focused on these names. And so both of them in North Carolina Central School of Law graduates, and we need to support them because it's important. You know, our judges, our prosecutors, our school board mean a lot to our young people and our families. And so we should be laser focused. And so that's the message that I'd like to provide to voters.
All right.
What are some of your top priorities if you're elected to Congress?
Wow. So my top priority is creating a resilient economy.
Okay.
Well, let me back up. Because quite frankly, people don't like to hear it. But the most important thing that we need to be prioritizing is protecting our democracy and the right to vote. Because without that, we have nothing. Right? All the other policy prescriptions that any candidate will offer will be of no value if we don't have a democracy. And so I'm going to be fighting like hell to protect our democracy and the right to vote. Mm-hmm. And along with that, I'll be fighting for a resilient economy and also doing something about protecting our democracy, among other things, as part of my platform.
Okay. How do you feel about what's going on right now with the abortion topic that's been going on in Congress and stuff?
So, as you know, the Supreme Court has already drafted, ahead of the actual case being heard, a draft opinion abolishing Roe versus Wade. And so I am unequivocally pro-choice, and I'll be fighting for women to make the decisions with regards to their body and their health care.
Right.
I remember many years ago having a vasectomy and no one saying anything about whether or not I should or should not do that with respect to my own health needs reproductively. And so I'm hand in glove with women with regards to the choices that they make with their body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did one of those myself. Had to.
Right, and it wasn't a policy discussion about it, isn't that right?
No, it was just my decision. I went and had it done and went right out. So I'm just like you. I feel like it's a woman's body. A woman should have a choice, and we as men should not be making that decision for them. You know, so dang, I just lost my question. Give me a second. My mind drew a blank. Y'all, I'm getting old. What distinguishes you from other candidates in the 4th Congressional District Democratic primary? That's what it was.
Wow. So let me say, Joe, I don't think that the stakes could be any higher in this congressional district race. And so I think the voters have a choice between the status quo or divisive partisan politics, or they could choose a different course for the future of North Carolina's 4th Congressional District. And I believe that I am that different course. And so I talked about doing independent research earlier on candidates. I believe that if people took a look at my platform and my experiences, that they would come to the only conclusion, which is that I'm the most qualified candidate for the office that we all seek. There's 8 people who are running to fill the seat of David Price. And so I'm the only candidate in this race who has national security experience. I mentioned that I served 21 years in the military, 2 combat tours. And so I know a little bit about national security. I'm also the only candidate in this race with real international policy experience. And so during the first administration of Barack Obama, I actually was a foreign affairs officer with the U.S. State Department. I'm the only candidate who's actually occupied any space in the Congress. I mean, I worked as a congressional staffer for the late Congressman Donald Payne. And I'm also the only candidate who has worked as a social worker and a social work educator, working on problems facing individuals, families, and communities at the grassroots. And so lastly, I'm the only candidate with experience in the law. I've served as a special assistant United States attorney in the District of Columbia and also as an Army lawyer. And so as I also mentioned that I'm presently the director of the Veterans Law Clinic at the North Carolina Central School of Law. And I mentioned all that just to inform our voters that I'm going to draw on a lifetime of experiences, but also draw on your experiences, Joe. And it's important to draw on your experiences because it's going to be necessary that we work together to, 1, protect our democracy and the right to vote, which I already discussed. We have to work together to bring jobs to North Carolina, ones that are a living wage. We have to make healthcare more accessible, and we have to do something about protecting our environment. And so those things are important. And together, we'll also expand educational opportunities like universal preschool and free community college. And North Carolina seems to be leading the way in that initiative. And so together, we can also reform our tax system. We can preserve Social Security for future generations of North Carolinians. And I'll also be positioned to make America keep its promises to our veterans. And so I think that's what distinguishes me from other people in this race.
I was going to ask you, you mentioned something about healthcare. So if you are elected, what are some of your plans for healthcare? Because I know it could be an issue in the community.
Yes. So let's talk about the state of healthcare presently. And so we know, all of us know about the Affordable Care Act. And quite frankly, the Affordable Care Act brought us 100 years forward with regards to a healthcare system, or I guess I should more, I should really refer to it as an insurance healthcare system. And so it brought more people into the healthcare system. And within the last month or so, President Biden has actually passed a executive order to allow additional people who were outside of the scope of the Affordable Care Act to now have access to affordable health care. But if the people decide to elect me to be their representative, I'm going to be fighting for universal health care. I believe universal health care is the future of healthcare in America. That would be healthcare as a basic human right, not one that's dependent on where you work or your zip code. And so I'm going to be fighting for that. We are one of the few countries in the industrialized world who do not have universal healthcare. Let me tell you about some of the companies that we keep with regards to not having universal healthcare. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, Nigeria, and the list goes on and on, although it's a short list. But that's the type of company that the United States keeps with regards to how we deal with the issues of healthcare. And so I think that universal healthcare is the future of our country. And there's been a lot talked about in our specific race here about Medicare for all. In fact, there's one of the candidates who had said, I'm the only candidate in this race who has supported Medicare for all. Well, quite frankly, Medicare for all is not a novel construct created by Bernie Sanders. The first Medicare for all bill was actually drafted in 1983 by my brother from Michigan, Democrat John Conyers. And I'm here to tell the story because they don't give him credit that he deserves. And if you look at Bernie Sanders' bill and take a good look at my brother Conyers' bill, you'll see a lot of similarities, but nobody's talking about it.
Okay. Well, you know that happens a lot with us.
Yes, yes it does.
So if you were elected, what is your top priority?
So I had mentioned already that I thought that the top priority for any candidate, quite frankly, should be protecting our democracy and the right to vote. Because without a democracy, we don't have anything. And that would be particularly detrimental on communities of color, i.e. Black people. And so we have to fight with everything within us to ensure that we maintain our democracy.
Okay. As far as North Carolina is concerned, what would be your economic priorities for our state?
Well, I had mentioned earlier in our discussion that I was running on building a resilient economy. And so one of my priorities will be ensuring that our economy is one that's based on one that offers jobs at a living wage, doing something about saving our environment, because quite frankly, economics is tied into saving our environment. So making a shift from fossil fuels to other forms of energy. And more importantly, environmental issues impact on Black and brown communities more than they do other communities.
Okay.
So I mentioned universal health care. Universal health care is an economic issue because if we go to a universal health care system, we can relieve a lot of the small businesses of the costs related to the healthcare plans, for example. So that's just one particular area. Also, I mentioned about providing educational opportunities. And so I am a big advocate for universal preschool and also free community college. You know that for every dollar that we spend in education, $4 goes back to our national treasury. And with respect to universal preschool, it will provide relief to families. I can remember having 3 little children of my own, and that the cost related to that being more expensive than my mortgage. And so you shouldn't have to go bankrupt to get a good education or to raise your family. And so those are the sorts of things that I'll be fighting for, right along with Social Security. I mentioned that Social Security is one of my priorities. And so can you imagine an America without Social Security and how many people would be in poverty, retirement? And so those are the sorts of things that I'll be focusing on economically with respect to North Carolina.
Okay. Another thing, I worked in North Carolina about 5 years ago. I was a teacher there.
Yes.
Are there any talks about teacher raises or teacher pay? Because I do know that North Carolina is one of the lowest paying states for educators. Yes. And it's so frustrating because the teachers work so hard. They put so much of their time, they spend so much of their own money, but the compensation is just it's not comparable to other states. And it's just driving teachers away from the profession. So what are your thoughts on that?
So Janai, I agree with you. Did I say that correctly?
Janai.
Janai. Yeah. I just want to make sure I said that correctly. Yes. You know, with my name spelled with a PH and not a V, I know how important these things are.
Get it right, Stephen.
So I agree with you. And quite frankly, this has come up in our discussions as we have gone around the district, participating in forums. And the reality about teachers' pay is that on the federal level, the federal government plays a very limited part in education of our children. And so if you look in our Constitution, there's actually no provisions for education at all. Education is not a fundamental right that's capitalized anywhere in our Constitution. But if you look in the state Constitution of North Carolina, children have a right to an education. And so that is reflected in funding that comes from the national level to the local level. And so most of the funding, and primarily the teacher salaries, comes from the 80% that the state and local governments put into the school system. And then the other 20% that is funneled to the states to support education are usually to support fundings in areas like special education, food programs, and safety.
Yeah.
And so there's an 80-20 split. But I think the federal government can provide incentives based on performance for teachers to increase pay. That's something the federal government can do. And so I'll be looking at ways creatively to try to subsidize what is an abysmal pay scale for teachers. And so I would agree. And not only teachers here in North Carolina, firemen and police are grossly underpaid.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
All right.
yes, is back in March, Biden announced the $2.7 billion funding for HBCUs.
Yes.
How do you think it's going to be rolled out? And two, do you think it will definitely impact all HBCUs? Because sometimes it's usually certain HBCUs. So what is your thought on that?
Well, I think the way that it will roll out, it will be distributed more equitably amongst the historically Black colleges and universities than ever before. I think more schools who traditionally have not got any parts of the federal funding will receive it this time around. And there seems to even be a push for private industry to get involved in supporting HBCUs in a way that we haven't seen in the past. And so, unlike Howard University, other schools in the historically Black college and university family are not part of the federal appropriations in order to support its existence. And so, I think that was a great initiative on behalf of the Biden administration, and I'm looking forward to some of that money landing right here in North Carolina, in places like North Carolina Central, of course, and also places like North Carolina A&T, St. Aug's, and Shaw here locally. Yes.
You didn't say Bennett College.
Oh, so
She said you didn't say Bennett. She's a
not,
Bennett Bell.
now, are you a graduate of Bennett College?
I am, yes.
All right, so we have something in common. As a Morehouse man, many people say that our sisters are from Spelman, but actually our sisters are Bennett Bells.
That's right.
So my sister, I did not mean to offend at all.
All right.
She's also a red. She's a Delta too.
Oh, okay. All in the family.
Yeah, she just had an anniversary. So
Yes.
let's talk about Social Security. I know that you're one of the few candidates talking about Social Security in this race. Why is that important?
So I think I had mentioned before about an America without Social Security and how many more people would be in poverty during their retirement ages. And so people aren't paying attention to this issue. And the fact of the matter is that Social Security is on life support. And so if someone doesn't give this program, which I believe to be the most successful program in the history of our country, some attention, we are liable to lose a very valuable safety net that we have in our society. And so I'm going to be fighting very hard. Hopefully, if you elect me to the United States Congress, I'll get assignment on the House Ways and Means Subcommittee that deals specifically with the issue of Social Security.
Okay. Now, this next question, we in my house, my son considers himself a little activist, a little political guy. He studies politics. He actually is a political science major in African American studies, and he just took the I guess you say the pre-LSAT test.
Okay, yes.
He wants to go into law.
Okay, good.
And he talks a lot about police reform and defunding the police. So what is your stance on that? And what are your thoughts on that?
So I think I am on the other side of this issue with respect to the people who are running in this race.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on the other side because I don't think it makes very good sense for communities of color to defund the police. Now, I think any organization, to include the police, can be reformed. And so there are bad apples, bad actors in every organization. And so to the extent that we need to handle those situations, I believe reform is definitely a way to do it. Moving more toward a community, moving back, quite frankly, to a more community type policing model instead of a militarized model of policing, which is what I think that goes on today. And defunding the police, quite frankly, marginalizes Black people and brown people. And so it would be counterproductive to defund the police, particularly at a time here locally, although the fourth congressional district expands several counties, but here locally, with the rising tide with respect to crime, you would not want to have our communities not protected and served. And so the problem now, as I see it, is that we are over policed, right? We are entitled to the protection and the service just as well as other communities. And so there's a fine balance that I think needs to be drawn with regards to the issues on defunding the police.
Okay. Janai, you got
how much more campaigning do you have to do? Are you all the way through? Like, where are you with your campaigning?
I am campaigning every day. So unlike other candidates in this race, I mean, I still work my full-time job. And so once my duty day ends, I'm out knocking on doors. Matter of fact, I knocked on 250 doors on yesterday, and only one person I had talked to, which is great for me, had voted.
Out of 250?
Yeah, out of 250 people, there was only one person who had voted. And I thought it was a great opportunity, and I think I brought some team, some people over to the team that's prioritizing people. And so I'm going to be out there every day until Election Day on May 17th.
Okay.
So I got to jump in right there. People, if you're watching right now, you got to vote. People, you have to vote. And you're hearing Mr. Valentine in front of us right now. You're hearing the good things he's talking about. So I would suggest that you really consider him. But at any race, please go vote. That's the only way we can bring change about. That's the only way things will start to get better, or we'll start to see something happen that may be favorable. If you're sitting at home and you don't go out at all, then you're part of the problem. I got to say that. If you don't do anything, you're part of the problem. You being a veteran, what things do you envision doing once you get into the position to help veterans or add to their existence in their life?
So before I address that question, Joe, I want to just piggyback on something you said about voting. Mm-hmm. So it's important to know, and I'm not just someone who believes in rhetoric. Yeah. You can ask anyone in this race. I don't consider anyone in this race to be an enemy of mine. And in fact, we're all a part of the Democratic Party. We're just in a contest for the nomination on the Democratic ticket. And so it's important that you get out. And so I would love to have your support, but it's more important that you get out and vote, just like Joe had mentioned a moment ago. And so please keep that in mind. Every vote matters in this election. Our democracy is literally in peril. And so we need to get out there and participate in the democratic process. Now, Joe, the question dealing with veterans, unlike other candidates in this race, I might know a little something about this particular area. And as I look at Title 38 of the United States Code and Title 38 of the Code of Federal Regulation, which deals with veterans benefits, those laws, as written, they're antiquated. They date back to World War II. And quite frankly, I'm going to work on trying to reform the code and the VA regulation in a way that brings us to the 21st century and helps us deal more effectively with veterans issues that are prevalent today.
All right. Janai, you have something?
No, I'm good.
Good?
I'm
good?
Yeah. I mean, if I was in North Carolina, I would vote.
Where are you airing from? Janai?
I'm in Maryland.
Okay, Maryland. Yes.
Yes, Maryland.
What part in particular?
I'm in Prince George's County, Upper Marlboro.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So talk
Go
to us
Westmore. Vote Westmore.
Okay.
talk to us about the environment. You know, if elected, what are your plans for the environment?
So I support the Green New Deal. I know there's a lot that's discussed about the Green New Deal, but quite frankly, as written, it's only aspirational. It was a resolution that was passed by the Congress, but it has no teeth. We need to actually do some legislating with regards to our environment. And so we can provide incentives to make it more cost effective for private industry to play a larger part in reducing carbon emissions and making the transition to alternative energy sources. And as I mentioned earlier, with respect to the environment, environmental issues impact on Black and Brown communities in ways that are quite different than other communities. And so we have a vested interest in clean water and clean air and protecting our environment. In fact, the whole environment, again, if you allow me, in the early 1980s, Ben Chavis led the first major movement about environmental racism right here in North Carolina. And he also does not get the credit that he deserves. And so all of these, just like with healthcare, things seem to be co-opted because it would seem that the right person didn't bring forth these policy prescriptions to be validated. However, I'm taking the opportunity to validate both John Conyers and Ben Chavis for their work in their respective areas. And Ben Chavis's work in his early work, environmental racism, really set the agenda for the entire environmental movement.
Now I know a lot of times, you know, if it's anything that's too personal, you can push back. We get to see candidates. We know their platforms. We hear their platforms. We get short blurbs of who they are, and
Yes.
I think it's very important if you can connect with someone on a personal level and understand them. That makes your decisions a little bit easier. So tell us about yourself and the fact that married, not married, kids, not kids, some of your hobbies and things you like to do, organizations that you belong to, things like that.
So I am married. I've been married for 24 years. I'm coming up on an anniversary here to my beautiful bride, Valerie Boyd Valentine. We have three beautiful children. I have a son who's 24 years old. He actually lives in Medmond. He's in the district. He can vote for his dad. My daughter is 19. She's on the verge of being 20. She's actually away at college at Swarthmore College in Pennsylvania. And she's a North Carolina voter, so she'll be home just in time for the election.
Yes.
And I also have a younger son, age 16, who's a junior in high school. And so I am very much a family-oriented man. You see my wife, but you don't see my children. My children don't want to be placed out into the public sphere, and so I respect that. But at some point, you'll get an opportunity to see us all together. At least that's my hope.
Yeah.
Now, with respect to organizations, Joe, I know that you sort of mentioned this at the beginning of the show. People might have missed it, but Joe and I are fraternity brothers, and Janai and I are brothers and sisters. I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and so there is one other person in the race who's part of the Pan Atlantic family, and they might be Janai's sister. But we hold the distinction of being the only two in the race who are part of the Pan Atlantic family. And I, quite frankly, did not know that the other candidate in this race, Valerie Fouché, was a Delta prior to getting in this race. But I hold the distinction of being the oldest member of the Pan Atlantic. I've been in this organization for it'll be 34 years come May 14th, and so I didn't join just yesterday. Yes.
Well, happy Qversary coming up, man.
Yes. I'm also a member of the Masonic Order. And so locally, I'm active with Durham 28 here in Durham, North Carolina, and also a member of the Shriners at Zafa Temple here in Durham, North Carolina. I'm a member of the National Association of Social Workers, lifetime member of the Veterans of Foreign War and the American Legion. And so I try to civically stay very active.
That's great.
And I did mention Joe too. I've been very active in the Democratic Party here locally, but I had to step away from the leadership position that I held because I'm now a candidate.
Okay. Janai, do you have anything else?
No, I just, I want to wish you the best of luck. Sounds like you have everything together. I just hope the people get out and vote and put you in Congress because we need more of us in there.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And Janai, I want you to know, and I want the people to know, it won't be luck with their support.
Yes, most definitely. So before we get out of here and get up off the porch, is there anything else outside of what you just said that you just want to leave with the people? Something they can hold on to, and hey, y'all, make the right decision. This is the man for you. Well, that's my plug. But anything that you just want to leave us with, any words of wisdom? It doesn't have to be anything about the race. Anything that you just want to say.
Well, again, I just want to reiterate that the stakes are very high in this election. Again, you have a choice, and the choice is between the status quo and old machine type politics, money from any source, divisive partisan politics, or you can change the course of politics here in North Carolina and vote for Valentine for Congress because he's prioritizing the needs of people first.
Hey, I love it. I love everything you said. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to fit us little people front porch discussions in here, so that we could do something. And you've answered a lot of questions. I hope a lot of people have paid a lot of attention to that, and I hope everybody goes out and votes. And I hope they consider you as at the front of their mind when they start making their selections. And I wish you all the luck, man. And I'm gonna claim it now. I think we're gonna see you in that seat, and we're gonna see some changes come about, man. Most definitely.
Thank you, Joe and Janai. It was great being on the porch.
Hey, man.
Thanks for coming.
Everybody watching, y'all make sure you go out and vote. We're gonna get out of here in a few seconds. And again, I want to say thank you, Janai. Thank you for being here with me. I want to give a shout out to DJ All Night and to Ari Saline. They both got tied up and they couldn't make it with us tonight. I know they had some important questions. And what we're going to do is we'll have Mr. Valentine back with us once he gets into position. We're going to claim it now, and we'll have him back with us, and we'll do some great things, and we'll talk to you when you're on the other side. We'll see what's going on with you, man. So hopefully we'll run into each other soon, dog.
Right.
And you have a wonderful night. Everybody watching, y'all have a great night, a great weekend. All right?
All right, take care.
Y'all take care.